Սիրոտոներից մինչև մարդու Գիծյան համակարգում ստացեք լրացուցիչ 8% զեղչ սալիկների ամբողջ տեսականու համար։
So Armenia should be congratulated for the leadership role that it is taking, and with that said, I'm very pleased to give the floor to His Excellency Ararat Mիրzոյան, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Armenia. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you so very much for your very kind words and introduction. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, it is a pleasure to open this panel jointly organized by Armenia and the Danish Institute for Human Rights. Today's discussion offers an opportunity to reflect on the place of implementation within the work of the Human Rights Council and the practical realization of human rights commitments. Implementation and follow-up are what give credibility to our work. They ensure that our commitments translate into concrete policies and measurable progress. Indeed, this continuity goes beyond technical cooperation. Above all, it signals and reflects political responsibility. At a time when human rights and humanitarian cooperation are increasingly challenged, the significance of such responsibility becomes particularly evident. For Armenia, implementation is part of our broader commitment to democracy, human rights, and the principles enshrined in the United Nations Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Our national experience offers a practical illustration of how these principles take institutional form. In 2024, Armenia established a standing mandate for its national mechanism for implementation, reporting, and follow-up by decree of the Prime Minister. This marked a deliberate transition from fragmented ad hoc reporting toward a structured and continuous implementation of human rights obligations, strengthening institutional memory, improving interagency coordination, and reinforcing good faith engagement with international mechanisms. This political choice was further put into practice through innovation. In December 2025, Armenia operationalized a dedicated digital platform to support the work of the national mechanism. The new tool, Armenia's Institutional Network for Monitoring and Reporting, AI-NEMRA, is a digital platform that brings human rights and technology into practical interaction. It functions as a centralized repository of recommendations addressed to Armenia by international and regional monitoring mechanisms, including United Nations treaty bodies, special procedures, the Universal Periodic Review, and monitoring bodies of the Council of Europe. By consolidating these recommendations into a clear and searchable framework, the platform enhances coherence, facilitates systematic follow-up, and strengthens Armenia's engagement within both the global and European human rights systems. Beyond its technical functions, the platform serves as a practical instrument for coordination and reflection. It enables structured follow-up, facilitates dialogue among institutions, and supports informed policy making. Its practical application will be further presented during this panel. Excellencies, our efforts are guided by the recognition that progress in human rights is rarely immediate. It requires consistency, openness to dialogue, and sustained political will. Armenia remains fully committed to principled cooperation with international human rights mechanisms and with the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, whose leadership and expertise are indispensable to the integrity of the system. The strength of the United Nations lies in its ability to provide an inclusive space for dialogue among all member states. Engagement with the Human Rights Council is therefore not a procedural formality, but a substantive democratic practice grounded in respect, dialogue, and accountability. Before concluding, I would like to note that human rights reporting is not only about the timely submission of reports. It is also about the readiness to explain policies, to listen carefully, and, where necessary, to adjust course. Transforming reporting from a periodic requirement into an ongoing conversation about governance and responsibility is ultimately what gives substance to commitments and strengthens institutional reliability. I hope today's exchange will deepen our understanding of implementation in the context of this evolving practice. I thank you, and I wish you fruitful deliberations.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. It's really refreshing to have a country come and talk about these issues of implementation and reporting, and do so, as you said, by pointing out that it's not just a bureaucratic process. Reporting and implementation should be a democratic process involving all parts of society, and I already congratulated Armenia and yourself for establishing the national mechanism for implementation reporting and follow-up, joining an increasingly large number of countries that are doing so. I had the pleasure of hearing more about your national mechanism at the recent meeting in Lisbon of the International Network of NMIRFs. But also, I wanted to congratulate you on the implementation reporting software.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to address this panel and to reflect on how human rights commitments move from paper to practice, and how institutions ensure continuity between promise and delivery. But at the outset, allow me to thank our co-organizers. I wish to express a sincere appreciation to the Danish Institute for Human Rights for the close and productive cooperation established particularly following the Memorandum of Understanding signed 1 year ago. And 1 year later, we are able to present concrete steps taken to improve coherence and follow-up in human rights mechanisms. I also extend our gratitude to the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, whose role in advancing national implementation, reporting, and follow-up mechanisms has been central, and whose expertise continue to guide national efforts. Armenia remains actively engaged with international human rights monitoring processes at both the United Nations and regional levels. Over the past few years, we have participated in unprecedented number of treaty body dialogues, submitted periodic reports on the regional conventions, and hosted monitoring visits while maintaining timely cooperation with special procedures and other Human Rights Council mechanisms. Last May, Armenia underwent its fourth cycle of Universal Periodic Review. These engagements are not procedural formalities. They reflect an ongoing dialogue with the international community. Reporting, review, and follow-up form a continuous cycle of reflection and reform. At the same time, the increasing scope and frequency of monitoring processes have placed considerable pressure on national reporting capacities. It was in this context that Armenia sought to strengthen efficiency, coordination, and institutional memory. The establishment of a standing national mechanism for implementation, reporting, and follow-up in 2024 marked a shift from fragmented reporting towards a permanent and structured system. This step was informed by the guidance of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. Drawing on the experience of other states that have developed such kind of digital tools, we concluded that our circumstances required a solution tailored to our own national legal and administrative framework. This is why Armenia identified the need for a complementary national instrument capable of incorporating regional obligations and internal working practices. For us, effective implementation means covering the full range of monitoring obligations, including those stemming from the Council of Europe system. It also means facilitating day-to-day coordination among institutions and maintaining internal working notes in the national language. These considerations led us to the development of a national digital tool within the broader framework of our implementation mechanism. I am pleased to note that this process progressed with notable efficiency. It was made possible by strong governmental support for the digitalization agenda and alignment with the government's digitalization strategy. Because the institutional infrastructure was already in place, there was no need for lengthy procedures or procurement processes. Thanks to our development team at the Armenia Information System Agency Foundation, we were able to create our first national digital platform for human rights implementation and reporting, Armenia's institutional network for monitoring and reporting. The platform was designed and deployed in approximately 3 months, an exceptional short time frame for such kind of systems. This demonstrates how institutional ownership, technical expertise, and clear policy can significantly accelerate the implementation. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to turn to introduction of the platform. The public interface presents recommendation through a structured system of filters. Users can search by thematic clusters covering 10 key policy areas, as well as by treaty bodies, whether the United Nations mechanism, the Universal Periodic Review, or those under the Council of Europe. The platform allows searches by reporting cycle, by year, or by keywords, and additional drop-down menus will soon be available to further simplify the navigation. We then move to the second interface, accessible to authorized users within the national mechanism. This working space contains implementation tracking information, including implementation status, for example, planned, ongoing, or completed, the responsible institution or institutions, and internal comments allowing more detailed follow-up. The platform, therefore, functions both as a transparency tool and as a practical coordination instrument supporting day-to-day implementation. Built on the New Moon framework powered by Directus, the system uses a modular architecture that allows adaptation and further development. New components can be added without altering the core structure, enabling the platform to evolve alongside changing reporting requirements and policy priorities. While tailored to Armenia's needs, it carries clear potential for replication, as its structure can be adjusted to different legal and administrative environments. We stand ready to cooperate with interested national mechanisms through exchange of experience and to share lessons learned from the design process, approaches to interinstitutional coordination, and practical aspects of integrating such tools into existing administrative workflows. Dear colleagues, human rights progress is gradual. It develops through dialogue, openness, and sustained commitment. In this context, technology and innovation increasingly serve as enablers, helping institutions manage complexity, improve transparency, and strengthen the implementation. National mechanisms and digital tools are thus not end in themselves, but practical means to sustain trust both domestically and between states and the institutions of human rights. Armenia stands ready to continue exploring innovative approaches that reinforce these objectives. I thank all participants for their engagement and wish fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.